Life, death, and other scary things at the Sheldon. That's next on City Corner. I'm Steve Potter, and welcome to City Corner. The Sheldon Concert Hall in the Grand Center Arts District is really an amazing place, performance space. And later we're going to be joined by their executive director, or its executive director, Peter Palermo. And he's going to preview some of the great things that are coming up there in the next few months that you're going to want to see. But first, put this on your calendar, February the 29th, Life, Death, and Other Scary Things. It's an evening with KC95's John Ulett, who I'm sure most of you remember. And it's put together by our guests, who I'd like to introduce right now. That is Ron Stevens to my right, and Greg Hagglund to his right.
Right. Welcome,
gentlemen, to the show.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
And John Ulett, probably one of the best-known on-air radio personalities in St. Louis history. Is that overstating it?
No, not at all. So many generations have grown up with John Ulett, listening to him, either on KC or hearing his voice at Busch Stadium during home games for the St. Louis Cardinals.
When did he start on the radio?
He started in radio in 1974, but he started at KC in 76 when he was 19 years old. I'm the guy who hired him.
Right. I've got so many questions for you. First, tell me just a little bit about Constellation, because that's you two guys together.
Correct.
What do you do?
Well, it's a joint venture of both Ron and I, and it covers a lot of different areas, but primarily developing strategic promotions or promotions and events. This being one of them, we've jointly created this event and are putting it on, and we have different clients that we are approached to do promotions for, et cetera.
Well, explain this, John Ulett, coming back to the Sheldon. I thought he was completely retired, but he's not really retired. Do you hear him? I'm a little out of it. Is he still on KC? What's going on?
That's a good question. People at KC see him in the hallways and say, "What are you doing here? Didn't you retire?" And he does still come in. He's semi-retired. He's working on retirement. And that is why he was so right for this show. Because Life, Death, and Other Scary Things is about what we go through as we age in life, and the structure of our life changes. And as we begin to retire or think about retirement, we wonder, what are we going to do? Some of us have things lined up, some don't. Some of us work harder than before. And John's going through that right now.
I can sort of relate a little bit. I've been semi-retired for like 5 or 6 years, so everything you just said rang a bell.
Right.
I understand I guess he permanently lives in Arizona?
He's living there now in the winter. Smart.
You don't know how many of my friends have retired to Arizona.
Mm-hmm. It's a beautiful place to go. The weather is certainly better than here right now.
We have an image of him, I think, from days gone by. Some people might remember. Of course, this is not a recent photograph.
That was taken in the 70s, I think around 78. Becky Young is a young lady with him. She worked in the front office, so that would have to be 77, actually. And that's what John looked like when he started at KC. As Mark Close would say, his hair would enter the room before he did. He's a little bit of Carlos Santana there, going there. This, interestingly, is not the only photo of John wearing those overalls like that. There are other photos of him there. So he would show up occasionally wearing them inexplicably, but he did it.
You won't believe this, but in that same time period, my hair wasn't quite as long, but I had long hair and I had long brown hair and a mustache too.
Yeah, so there you go. That's the 70s.
You hired him at 19.
Yes.
Did he have any experience?
He was the first person in 7 years to be hired at that station who had any experience. He, at the time, was working at 19 years old in Jefferson City. He started working at KZK when it was an easy listening music station when he was still in high school. And I had heard about him and heard his voice, and he had a beautiful voice, as he still does. So I called him up and offered him the job, and he turned it down.
What?
Twice. Yeah, he's a 19-year-old kid with hair like that.
Turned down his St. Louis
He turned down
job.
Coming back home and working for the #1 rock station in St. Louis.
Has he ever explained that?
Yes, he has. The third time I called him, I asked him, why do you keep turning this job down? he says, well, my mom doesn't want me to take it.
Was that a joke?
No, he was serious.
No.
My mom was the same way, so I understood. So I told him that. I said, you know, when I started 4 years earlier, my mom didn't want me to take this job either, and I'm still here, and my mom still talks to me. We have a great relationship. He was, you know, I mean, Casey had a reputation back then, and he was very serious about his career and did not want to put himself in a situation that would in any way hurt that career. Here, 47 years later, he's still there, and the rest of us are all gone.
Well, Greg, let me ask you. Ron, you hired him, and you're going to be emceeing this event too, hosting this event coming up at the Sheldon. But Greg, just as a listener, what are your first memories of John Ulett? And I guess, what does he mean to you?
Well, I first moved to St. Louis in '78 in the record business, and I used to call on Casey on a regular basis to talk about playing the records that I was currently working at the time. And I remember, you know, just listening to John and several of the other disc jockeys. It was, you know, Minneapolis had a rock radio station, but it was not anything like Casey. So this was a different aura, different vibe, different feeling. You know, if it was raining outside, we played rainy songs. I mean, it was, they could change things on a dime to do it. And listening to John was a treat, and several of the other disc jockeys that were there, Joel Myers at the time, and Mark Close, and all of them.
You know, I have a background in radio. Most of it was talk radio, but believe it or not, when I started, I actually was a DJ for a little while. This was a million years ago. How do you put your finger on it? What makes somebody good at connecting with people on the air?
You know, before I answer that question, I want to know what call letters, what station did...
KICK.
Oh, okay.
Kick Radio was the big station in Springfield, Missouri,
Right.
for like popular music.
Yes.
Yeah.
And yeah, I got into radio late at 28.
Wow.
I worked there for less than a year, and then went into talk radio after that.
Okay, we've turned this whole interview around now. Now we're interviewing Steve.
No, let's talk about John Ulett.
No, but that's a very good question about what, you know, the magic of connecting with the listeners. And that's always been very important to Casey. As I mentioned a minute ago, nobody at the station at the time we hired John had any previous experience in radio, so we were all pretty much winging it, making it up as we went along. But one thing we all agreed on is that this isn't something we created, but with this community within the community, this of listeners that we shared this relationship with, and a very important one. And when we focused on that, we were focusing on our ability to communicate with them and participate at our level, in our way, with this community, this group. And John understood that better than any of us, I think.
We have a really short video that I want to share with our viewers, and I think, Ron, you actually took this? Mm-hmm. So it'd be like, you know, during a commercial break or something, I guess, right? In the studio?
Actually, I was not working there at the time. We were, Greg and I were producing a show called Keep Live Alive St. Louis during COVID, where we raised over $100,000 for people in the live entertainment industry here in St. Louis who were out of work. And Casey was a media sponsor of our event, and they gave us, Hubbard Radio gave us tremendous support on this. So I went down to the studios to shoot this footage that you're talking about.
All right, just a few seconds long. Let's take a look.
Oh, now he's done.
Yeah, good timing.
He's cutting up, though. And they're pointing, that's good.
Okay, here comes John Beck. Get off his chair.
I can relate to that. And I just want to make one little comment, Ron, because your wife plays a role in all of this.
Yes, Joy, my wife, Joy Gridnick, she was Joy in the Morning on Casey back in the 70s, will be the opening act for this show. She has a very funny slide presentation that she does, and she is re-geared it for the theme of life, death, and other scary things. She's doing the other scary things part, I would say.
And Greg, I think you mentioned something about people also know John, like from the Cardinals. Mm-hmm. When their Saturday morning show, he did a couple of things, right?
Right. He does the stadium announcing for years now. I guess what, 25 plus years.
Yeah, right.
And then he does a Saturday show. Why don't you tell them about that?
The Saturday show is Cardinals Kids, right? It was originally hosted by Andy Bennis, the pitcher, and now it's Brad Thompson hosting it. And that's John. The picture we're looking at was John as the booth announcer. He's the one who brings on the players, you know, announces each player as they come up to the plate.
one thing that I've heard is that, you know, you always think of radio people or TV people as being out there. As I understand, he's a very private person.
He is very much a private person, which surprises me that he agreed to do this. When I approached him and said, I want to be able to sit you on stage and discuss anything I want to discuss, and you have to agree to answer any question I ask you. And he thought about that and said, you know, that's the only way this show makes sense. If I don't agree to that, it's a little bogus in a way. So yes, and he is a private person, so I expected him to actually say no and turn it down. He turned me down twice when I offered him the job, so why not? This is a picture of him with
Roger
Hodgson from Supertramp.
Wow.
Yes, backstage.
Well, I bet being a DJ at Casey, he talked to every rock star there ever was that came through town, right?
That was another special part about that radio station when rock stars came into town. The first thing they did was get dinner and then come to Casey.
Mm-hmm. Of course, he did mornings.
That is Sammy Hagar there. He's
wow.
with, yes. And yes, John has been doing mornings almost the entire 47 years he was there.
Who's that?
That's
Sammy
Sammy
Hagar.
also, yeah.
Huh. Well, we just have a minute left. Wow, that went quick. Let's remind people what the deal is. It's February 29th at the Sheldon. It's a life, death, and other scary things.
Yeah,
I almost messed that
We
up.
should point out that Michelob Ultra has come on board as a local sponsor of the event, and we're very pleased to have them on board as well.
So people should be buying tickets like right now, right?
That's
at
correct.
metrotix.com.
Yeah. So, and you probably, Ron, you don't even know for sure what's going to happen? Is it going to be kind of improvised?
It's structured like a morning show. You kind of know where you're going, but you don't know how you're going to get there. So there will be a lot of surprises and a lot of fun. There are a lot of celebrity surprises as well.
Like what?
Should I name names here?
No.
No.
Oh, can you give me a hint?
You know them all.
All right, good enough. February 29th. Gentlemen, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you very much.
And I've never met John, but please give him my regards.
We will do that.
John Ulett, he's a legend for sure. We're going to be back, and I know you're big fans of the Sheldon. We're going to meet the executive director next and find out other things that are going on there coming up. That's next on City Corner.
What I love about St. Louis is the 79 unique neighborhoods nestled into 108 city parks, including Forest Park, which is actually larger than Central Park in New York, and of course, the beautiful Tower Grove Park where I'm at now. Oh, the St. Louis Blues. We've got the St. Louis Surge, two-time WBCBL champions. We've got Harris Stowe, WashU, St. Louis University, and of course, the 11-time World Series champion, St. Louis Cardinals. So come experience St. Louis.
Last week, Brandon met a girl on a dating app. One day after work, he finally found the courage to ask her out. No answer. He started to panic. Was he being too pushy? Maybe it was too
Hey, sorry I didn't respond. I was driving. I would love to go on a date. How does tonight sound?
Brandon tried to play it cool, but inside he knew. A girl so smart, so responsible. She must be a keeper.
I'm Sandra, this is Jorge, and we were adopted in 2019. I remember when they first came to us, Michael was already a teenager. The whole cliche of, they're so lucky to have you guys, and it's the other way around. They have changed our family for the better. They chose to love us. They didn't have to. They chose us. Family.
Learn about adopting a teen from foster care. You can't imagine the reward. Visit adoptuskids.org.
Oh, man. I can't believe I'm missing this.
Don't get stuck at home with the flu. A flu shot is the best way to prevent the flu and its potentially serious complications. Don't get flu FOMO. Learn more at getmyflushot.org.
I'm Steve Potter, and welcome back to City Corner. Well, we're talking about the Sheldon today, and Peter Palermo is our next guest. He is the Sheldon's executive director. Peter?
Thank you for having me.
What did you think about my last two guests?
They're terrific. They're terrific, and they do a lot of other shows at the Sheldon, so they're great partners, and we're happy to have them, and this show sounds terrific.
And one thing, you know, I was talking to Ron, of course, he has a background in radio. I have a background in radio. I know a few seconds ago I found out that you do too.
In high school, I worked at a country and western station in Grand Island, Nebraska, where I grew up. So, yeah, we all have faces for radio.
Oh, yeah, I've heard that. Thank you. People make fun of us radio people for other reasons, too, but we won't go there. First, we've got some things we want to preview in the time we have. But before we do that, we have some images of the Sheldon, because the Sheldon is known as one of the best performance spaces anywhere. Don't they say they have the best acoustics in the world?
Perfect acoustics. So the place was built in 1912 as the Ethical Society. And the idea was that this room was built for the human voice. And the day it opened, the headline in the Post-Dispatch, or I can't remember what the name of the paper would have been in 1912, excuse me.
Globe Democrat, maybe.
Maybe. Said the acoustics were perfect. And it stuck. That's what it's been. It was.
We have some images of, I think, interior and exterior.
Yeah,
maybe we could take a look at really quickly.
You know, it feels like a miniature Carnegie Hall. If you took Carnegie Hall and shrunk it to about a quarter of its size, that's what the Sheldon would feel like, and it's really perfect for music. It's a beautiful space, historic. Artists love it. Everybody who comes through, from Willie Nelson to B.B. King to Dave Brubeck to name them a legend, and they've been through the place. Well, they all love it.
I hosted the Cityscape program on St. Louis Public Radio, which is right on the other side of your back parking lot. And over the years on Cityscape, I can't tell you how many famous performers that performed at the Sheldon that were on my show, who were performing the next day at the Sheldon. And then I introduced the Capitol Steps there 5 or 6 times, and hung around backstage, and I don't know. I could live there.
We had an artist, Rhiannon Giddens, recently, who's a wonderful Grammy Award winner, and she, in the middle of her performance, said, "This place is like a warm hug," and I loved it. So, but it's true. Our audiences are terrific, and the space itself is so warm.
Well, we've got some events coming up, and we want you to talk about that.
Sure.
And one thing I never think about at the Sheldon, even though they do everything, but the St. Louis Symphony Orchestra.
That's right. That's right.
Well, is that because they've been remodeling?
Well, that was really the what instigated this partnership that we're now having with the St. Louis Symphony. Is, you know, they're out of Powell Hall as they refurbish it and do a huge, exciting rebuild of that space, but they want to stay in Grand Center. They still want to have a presence in Grand Center, and we discussed this option of doing a chamber music series at the Sheldon. And
chamber music just means small.
It just means small. It's not full orchestral. It's usually written for a smaller ensemble.
Like 10 or something?
Without a conductor, generally. The musicians are working with each other. They're watching each other. Our first, the one that they probably want me to mention, is February 7th, which was, that's David Hagglund up on top there. He's the concertmaster of the St. Louis Symphony. This series has been curated by the musicians. So the symphony, St. Louis Symphony, said to their musicians, "Why don't you?" This is the timpani. This is the timpanist who's doing the concert that we have. Gosh, is it in April? I think maybe. Anyway, go to thesheldon.org. The whole calendar's there, and there are 5 of these concerts with the symphony that we're doing. And as I said, they're curated by the musicians. The musicians look at their repertoire and they decide what they want to play. And so they're very excited. They're invested. And these concerts are really cherry-picked for the Sheldon.
So there's one you mentioned, February 7th.
Yep.
That's Ravel and
is it Stravinsky? No, it's not Stravinsky. That's the next one. Dvorak. Yeah, yes. Thank you. And then the next one I think has Stravinsky in it. That's the percussion, led by the percussionist.
Percussion Spotlight, and that's going to be on March 6th. Tell me about that one.
That's the one that that their lead percussionist is going to curate for us. So all of them have been a great success so far, and we're really happy about this partnership. We're excited to have the symphony. They want to come back next year.
I'm trying to remember how many seats the Sheldon has. I knew at one time.
712.
I was going to guess 700. Which is, it's not huge, but it's perfect for that space.
It's perfect for what we're doing. I mean, we can have a string quartet on our stage with no microphones.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, that's the beauty of the Sheldon. There's nothing between you and that wooden cello. You know, it's just it's all in the room. The room does all the work. It's really a wonderful architectural feat.
And I read something, Peter. Tell me if this is true. I found it hard to believe. I've read that there are more than 350 events at the Sheldon every year.
Yes, that's true. It is true. Sometimes multiple events in a day. You know, we have multiple spaces. We have our concert hall, which everyone knows. Well, maybe not everyone. I would love everyone to know our concert hall. But we also have a ballroom, which sits on top of that concert hall. And that's a wonderful space for a private party or a smaller concert. Other partners that we work with, the Cabaret Project of St. Louis is doing cabaret up there. And then in the 90s, we bought the building next door to us, which was a 1920s era parking garage. And we converted that into our gallery and into another event space called the Conacher Room. And that's where our lobby is, that's where the bar is, and all of that is in this building next door to the historic concert hall. So we have that other event space as well. So there's all sorts of things happening all the time.
I just thought of another one that I think you do every year, and I think you still do it, the Donnybrook TV show.
Yes.
What they call it, Donny Bash?
Donny Bash, every year. You know, we have lots of local partners. We're really proud as a nonprofit, the Sheldon, to be working with other nonprofits and, you know, being part of the community. You know, we work with Focus St. Louis on their What's Right with the Region. We work with SLU on their literary awards. We are happy to host galas for other nonprofits that are working on their fundraisers, and we keep the place busy.
A few comments just about the Grand Center in general.
Yeah.
How it has really developed over the past, 10 or 15 years. Yep. It's really amazing.
It's amazing. And a lot of that is COVID brought all of the arts organizations together in a way that they weren't before.
How?
Well, we had to. Who am I going to talk to about what we're dealing with? The fact that we're in the gathering people together business, and all of a sudden we can't do our business. Who am I going to talk to about that? Right. Who's going to help me navigate this strange new water? It's all the people who do the same thing. The good people at the Fox, the people at the Symphony, Jazz St. Louis, all of those wonderful colleagues that we have in Grand Center. We all got together and shared our misery, but also what we were trying to do. And that stuck. And I think that with people like the Kranzberg Foundation, helping lift up that neighborhood.
Tell Nancy and Ken hi.
I will. I will. Nancy's a board member of the Sheldon. Right. So, it's taken a lot of people and a long time, years, but that Grand Center is it was just, I think Forbes magazine did an article about it maybe 6 months ago, called it the #1 emerging arts district in the country. Now, we all thought, emerging? What are they talking about, emerging? But we took it anyway. We took the compliment anyway.
So there's the events with the St. Louis Symphony Orchestra on February 7th and on March 6th. Then on February 20th, you have a coffee concert series.
Yeah,
Tell me about that.
The coffee concerts are wonderful. They are morning concerts. Concert starts at 10, done by 11. Come in at 9 o'clock and have a cup of coffee and a donut in one of our other spaces.
Yep. We have an image of Janet Evra, who's going to be
Evra will be our concert in February. There's Janet, and she's a real friend of the Sheldon. We do a lot of work.
I interviewed her one time, and she lives near me, as a matter of fact. But she's really neat.
She's wonderful, and she's going to do a bossa nova show for our coffee concert. So it's going to be a lovely morning, and they're very popular. Those morning concerts are really popular with folks.
And all kinds of
We do all sorts of kinds of, we do. We had we're going to do a 70s pop music. Next, a little later in the spring, we've done classical, we've done jazz, we've done a lot of vocalists. We had Denise Times there in October, if you know Denise. And,
very well.
So we mix that up and try to offer a real, buffet, a smorgasbord.
One thing I want to ask you about, you have some upcoming spring gallery exhibitions.
Yep.
I guess they begin on March the 8th?
March 8th is our opening. We have a big public opening night on March 8th. That's free for everybody from 6 to 9. That's a model, by the way, what you're looking at on the screen right now is a model. There's one of the exhibits is Wally Herndon Smith along with, do you have the name right in front of you there?
Paul Young.
Paul Young is the model maker, and that's a combination of model making and watercolors, all about architecture.
Studies in architecture.
Studies in architecture, so that'll be lovely. We'll have 7 different exhibits. Yeah, that's the old Rock House. I love that model.
Yeah.
I want him to have to do one of the Sheldon for us now. Now that I know that this guy, Paul, is so terrific, I want him to do one for us. And there's an example of Wallace Smith's watercolors. So it's kind of a pairing of old and new. And then there's some other exhibits. There's 7 altogether, including...
The next one, let me ask you about this one then. A jump, twist, or dive.
Yeah.
What's that?
That is Evan and Stacy. And that's what they go by, no last names. And this is like the sort of the delight and horrors of childhood playthings. Sort of how dangerous and how fun childhood was with all the...
We're almost out of time, unfortunately. Yep. Let's show one more image. This is from Beach Barbecue. What is Beach Barbecue?
Beach Barbecue. He's really talking about how in American life, you got to make time, and we're not making time to rest. And so these are images where he's trying to reinforce the idea that you got to take a break.
Do you have any long-term goals, not personally, but for the Sheldon, anything in the future that you can talk about?
We want to make the Sheldon the #1 destination for live music in the Midwest. We want everybody in the country to know about the Sheldon. That's my goal. I mean, it's a treasure of St. Louis, and it should be a national treasure as well.
Why do you think it works?
For so many reasons. Artists love it. It's a great size that you just don't find everywhere around the country. Right. And it was built that way.
What do you want people to know about how to get tickets and find out more?
Go to thesheldon.org, thesheldon.org. You can find out everything listed on our calendar, everything I forgot to say because there's 350 events this year.
Right.
And we're busy, but it's a wonderful place, and we'll be delighted to see everybody.
Well, Peter Palermo, we're glad you're there.
Yes, Steve.
I think you must have a great job. I bet you like going to work every day.
I do. I really do.
Well, thank you for sharing with us today.
Sure. Thank you.
And if there's somebody out there that has not seen something at the Sheldon, you definitely need to. So
thank you.
There you go. Thanks, Peter. I'm Steve Potter, and thank you for being part of the City Corner, and join us next time. Thanks. Bye.